Is this very 27 of me? Do 27-year-olds have YouTube? Yeah, there's loads of people. I watch a grandmother in her 80s who plays Skyrim, which is a video game, if you don't know. So, I am 27. That's crazy. In some ways, I feel like I'm in my late 90s. In other ways, I feel like I'm 6 years old. Hopefully you know what I mean by this, because I can't really explain that. It's just the feeling I have. But yes, I am 27 years old. So, we're just gonna brush by my birthday and all of that stuff because I'm not really into that. I don't like my birthday. I've said this before, but what I am interested in talking about today is the 27 Club. So if you are unaware, I did actual research for this video. If you are unaware, the 27 Club is this phenomenon or whatever you want to call it. It's a thing in our culture where people have noticed that several very famous people like Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, Kurt Cobain, I think, Amy Winehouse, several of these famous musicians, celebrities, actors have all died at the age of 27 years old. First of all, okay, I need to say that I'm not like implicating myself in this group because this specifically applies to like celebrities and things like that. And I make cute little videos on YouTube. Well, I hope they're cute. But I'm interested in talking about it because I am now 27 years old. And I find it interesting that our culture has kind of picked up on this idea that for whatever reason, many of these young celebrities run into trouble at 27. Most of these are related to like drug or alcohol, sometimes violence, things like that. But our culture, for whatever reason, has picked this up. And so I'm using it as an excuse to talk about people that do not grow old. I'm going to say it that way in a hope that YouTube is fine with it and everything. We will see. But yes, because we look back at like Kurt Cobain and Amy Winehouse and all of these famous people, Paul Walker, Princess Diana. These are all good examples of people who did not grow old. And there is this kind of, we revere these people. And I've talked about like age and growing old in our society and ageism. And I've talked about this stuff a lot, but I've never really like properly discussed this, and I want to discuss it. So basically, we're going to talk about people who go young. We're going to say go young instead of anything else. But basically, it's interesting. And I've always thought it was interesting, especially like how people kind of revere Princess Diana. We look back at many of these people who went before their time. It was their time, but we say like, oh, they could have had such an amazing career or gone off and made more music or more movies or more charity work or whatever. But it's interesting. And I have some thoughts. So my first thought, I did make notes. Audrey Hepburn versus Marilyn Monroe. So if you don't know, Marilyn Monroe went early. I don't know if she was 27. You can look that up, but I don't think she was. I think she was, well, maybe. I thought she was older than that. But Marilyn Monroe and Audrey Hepburn. Audrey Hepburn, icon, amazing. Breakfast at Tiffany's. Like, if you haven't watched any of Audrey Hepburn's stuff, please go watch it. She's amazing. But she lived into her 70s, I think. She didn't get like crazy old, like 90s or anything, but she got old and did a whole bunch of humanitarian stuff. She was pretty amazing. I just watched like a thing on her life. There's a biopic of her coming out soon. But she isn't revered in the same way that Marilyn Monroe is, because Marilyn Monroe went early. She didn't grow old. She didn't, make all of the mistakes that older people tend to make. And so I think it's interesting because in my personal view, like I've watched Gentlemen Prefer Blondes and Breakfast at Tiffany's and all these movies and stuff because I'm a big old movie buff. In my personal opinion, I think Audrey Hepburn is a lot more iconic, a lot more interesting. And like, obviously it's not a competition, but in terms of like if you were just to present both of these women's careers to me, I would have thought Audrey Hepburn would have had this like way bigger pop culture influence, but she doesn't because she lived the whole way through. Whereas Marilyn Monroe has this sort of iconic, she comes onto the scene, she's very iconic. She's hanging out with people like Einstein and JFK, and then she goes, all tragic, before her time, way too young, all of that stuff. And then she's immortalized and sort of becomes this iconic image that we see all over the world, right? Princess Diana is a really good example as well, because had she not gone in the tragic way that she did go, I don't think she would be revered as much. Don't get me wrong. Amazing lady. So amazing. So much time for her. The amount of charity, the stuff she did during the AIDS epidemic, everything. Got a lot of time for her. Really, really amazing person. However, there is this kind of like cult following of her, and there are like TikTok channels completely dedicated to her. There's obviously all those movies about her. And I don't think that would have happened if events had been different. The same goes for like Jimi Hendrix and Kurt Cobain, Amy Winehouse. I mean, there's a movie about her. I don't know if that's already come out or if it's coming out, but there are these people that, for whatever reason, seem to be idolized when they go early. It's weird saying that, but it just seems like there is. And I think it's interesting because it's like our culture being obsessed with youth, our culture being obsessed with young and hip and what could have been. And we're really interested as a species in that whole idea of like, there was so much ahead of you, and I don't know. I think it's interesting. I think it's worth a discussion, hence why we're talking about this. And as a newly minted 27-year-old, it makes me think about legacy. And like, I don't really care about my legacy. I hope that I'm fondly remembered in 20 years or something, but I don't have this like grand design of being like, oh my gosh, he was so motivational. And like, I also have no plans to like go anywhere. Like, don't like misconstrue that. Like, I'm just talking about like what I do, and like the small influence that I have in the world. I would like to be fondly remembered in like 10 or 20 years after I stop making content, but I have no grand design of like a legacy or my name on a street or in a star on the ground. Like we like it when you think about it, humans really do. We idolize things and we try and memorialize ourselves as best as we can. If you think about it, like our whole award show system where like celebrities get awards, Nobel Peace Prize, like all of this stuff, it's all about trying to preserve people's names and carry the legacy or carry their fame after they go, which is really strange when you think about it. I'm sure there are cultures in the world that just don't care, that they're like, whatever, these people are gone. Or maybe like, you often hear about the Chinese traditional religions and sort of ancestor veneration. And at some point, the ancestors just becomes this like blanket term that is like ascribed to everybody who came before you, instead of like venerating specific ancestors. You're kind of just like the ancestors. That's what you're venerating. That's what you're respecting. Whereas our culture is very individualistic and very interested in just the specific person, what they did, and what they could have done, what they should have done, those kinds of things. And it's interesting because our culture is very obsessed with this whole iconic symbolism. Like, right now you're seeing all of these statues around the world being taken down for like colonialism and the American Civil War, and people's impacts on history are being reevaluated based on our current moral framework. Like they want to take down Churchill's statue and Cecil Rhodes and these like Confederate generals. So it's interesting because it's like we want to revere these people and we want to like have somebody to look up to, but at the same time, like a lot of these people deserve some like proper scrutiny and some like evaluation. However, seems like in the 27 club, these people are kind of like excused for bad habits and things. Like Amy Winehouse had a substance problem, right? And her music's amazing, but she wrote a song about how she would refuse to go to rehab. And this might be a very controversial opinion. Like, I am sorry, I don't mean to offend anybody who is a huge Amy Winehouse fan. However, she was quite famous for writing a song about how she would not go and seek help for her problem. And then she went. She didn't like go and seek help for her problem. She like went off of the earth. And so I don't like when people in like big rooms or whatever are talking about like how amazing Amy Winehouse is. I personally don't think that that is somebody who should be looked up to and revered in such a way. Like if you get angry at the idea of Winston Churchill being on a statue because of the Indian famines during World War II, if that really upsets you and you don't care or you discount his impact in helping the Allies win World War II, if you think like Indian famine, which is like a horrible event in history, like don't get me wrong, I'm not defending Winston Churchill, but if you are a human being who can look at that historical impact and go, yeah, Winston, you don't really get a pass for everything you did. I appreciate what you did for some aspects of our life today. Like I'm not speaking German because of him, very probably. However, you can't look at like we can't look at Amy Winehouse or Kurt Cobain or some of these other people for the choices they made. Like it's interesting that we seem to give people who passed away young a pass for some of the decisions they were, and they're still viewed as role models. I think another good example is Che Guevara. You know, people are always putting him on posters, and whether you love him or not, he was a terrorist. I mean, he was a freedom fighter and a guerrilla, campaigner who tried to overthrow governments that he thought were not good. But he's still a terrorist, and again, like, don't come for me at the comments. Like, I'm not even gonna tolerate any of this. Like, how dare you talk crap about this? Like, whatever. Like, these people are all gone. They don't need you to defend them. These people are gone. There's nothing bringing them back. They can't hear me now. So, like, don't come for me about, like, how dare you besmirch the beautiful reputation of Amy Winehouse? Like, no, stop. Like, do not. And don't come for me, like, if you love Churchill or Che Guevara or Gandhi or whoever you want to talk about. I don't care. I'm interested in the idea that our society reveres people who are young and we seem to give them a pass. And I don't know why. Maybe it's because of ageism and we're just obsessed with youth and being young. Like a lot of the tragedies, like Romeo and Juliet, another great example of two young people who go early, and we kind of revere that, even though they were like silly little kids who only knew each other for a very short period of time before deciding to make choices that were not beneficial to their well-being. And I don't know, maybe it's like the anarchist in me who's just interested in dissecting every aspect of daily life and of these people that we revere. But I just think it's interesting. And like I said just a minute ago, like, I am not casting shadows or doubts on specific people. If you love a certain person that I talked about, cool, awesome. I'm not here to like specifically be like, this person sucked. I just think it's interesting that based on the choices that you make in your life, you will either be revered or reviled. Is that a word? Reviled? We're going to go with it. You know what I mean. You will either be revered or reviled, but if you happen to be 27, somehow you get like a pass. You know what I mean? Somehow we kind of like chalk it up to like, well, they get a pass. They were just good. Like, they become this like martyr or this saint. who did no wrong when they did wrong. Like when they, like, everybody screws up. Like I've screwed up. Like I'm not like saying like I'm not advocating for like we should only revere people who are perfect, because we would not have statues of anybody. We would not have any kind of material culture looking back at our ancestors or our past or whatever. So I don't know. This video is very much a ramble. I realize that now. But I don't know. I think it's interesting, and I'm interested to hear your thoughts. Yeah, I hope you watch the whole way through and don't just like comment in the first 5 minutes when I've offended somebody, and then you like get to the end of the video and you're like, oh, okay, well, that's a little bit different. But anyway, yeah, let me know. 27 Club. I hope to not be part of that club. I'm looking forward to 28. I think 28 is a cool number. So, yeah, but there we go. Another year older, certainly not another year wiser, but who knows? Maybe one of these days I will pick up some universal wisdom that will actually stick with me. But until then, thank you guys very much for watching. I look forward to your thoughtful, interesting, thought-provoking comments. And as always, I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Thank you again, but goodbye.